It is possible to laugh in moments which turn out to be terrifying and tragic. You do not know that this is going to be so. You're living in the present in each second, and so there was laughter in the crowd. Something good had happened. Maurice had been freed, and the tension of the last 3 days had ended in celebration. We were joking and laughing, thinking that all was put to right again, and perhaps we would walk down from that hill, drink a rum and coke, and go to sleep again. You do not know that someone who is wearing yellow and smoking a cigarette, and someone who's dressed perhaps in blue and is a man of laughter, and someone else standing in a doorway not 6 feet away from you will be killed 1 hour from now. The three people you are looking at are 3 strides away from you. You can call to them. They will be murdered in an hour. Their bodies will be dragged behind the same fort and never recovered. Perhaps they'll be dumped in the ocean or perhaps buried in a quarry. The yellow shirt and the blue shirt will be soaked in their blood. The shadow, which is Maurice in the doorway, will call to Jackie, who is in yellow, to come with him as they are dragged away. A soldier will call her a bitch. Another will put the butt of his rifle in Maurice's face. You cannot know all this looking from your footing on the gravel portion of the hill, then looking toward the building where they are all still alive. 2 cars came up the hill, stopped, and a few men jumped out. They opened the trunk and took out 4 or 5 AK-47s. My friend, the woman from Kairaku, tugged at my arm and said, "Let's go." Her face was stricken. I continued laughing. To soothe her, I said to her, "Oh, no, no, don't worry, it's over. Nothing will happen. It's only guns." She tugged on my arm again, insisting, saying, "No, let's go now." I don't know what made me listen to her. I hadn't known her that long. I just wanted to make her happy, to accompany her. I finally said, "All right," still laughing as if accommodating a child. We made our way through the crowd. I reluctantly, she pushing her way through quickly. I tried to slow her again, saying it was all right, that nothing more would happen. "Why would it?" I asked. She said, "You don't know." I didn't, but I thought that I did. I thought that I knew more than she did. The truth is, I knew nothing at all that day. My head was in a fever, though my fever was forgotten by then. But even without it, I did not know the thing that she knew, which she was trying to tell me. She could read the signs of her compatriots better than I. She knew where she lived. I live like a poet lives in a dream, in a wonderful dream, which is always awakening to the hard things about life and then diving into the dream again for rescue. And that day I had a fever to compound it. But like a poet, I left with her just to console her. We walked down the hill and I said to her again, "Nothing else can happen. Look, if it does, it's suicide, right?" "No, no, it's over," she said. "You wait and see." Market Square was still packed, but more and more people were drifting toward the fort. She still could not find transport to Guave. She decided to go to a friend's. We walked around Archibald Street. We parted near the fire station. I said I'd see her at work the next day if things were settled. It was the last time I saw her. I never thanked her for saving my life. I thought about returning to the fort when I left the woman from Kairaku, as I should go back now that I had seen her off. But then I thought that I should go to work to find Marlene and tell her what I had seen. So I went to the office. I had the keys and the keys to Marlene's house. I climbed the steep hill from the fire station and up the track to the house. I went to the kitchen, got a glass of cold water from the refrigerator, and walked onto the balcony, which looked out to the fort. I saw the crowd there in the place where I was standing not 5 minutes ago. I raised the glass of water to my lips. I saw 3 armored vehicles racing toward the fort. They were heavy, swift, and determined. Their motors were loud. I saw the top of them dip out of sight for a second at the fort row and then emerge on the hill. I heard the sound of gunfire. It was staccato, but guttural. The crowd where I had been standing began running in all directions. I saw people leap from the cliff and bump raggedly down its side. There was nowhere to run. People threw their bodies down the cliff, trying to get away. I could not hold the glass. The water spilling was like hard stones. I did not feel as if I was in my body. They looked like rags of cloth spilling over the cliff, tumbling. Some looked as if they expected to walk on air. The air dropped from my own body. There were 1,000 bright stabbing wounds in my skin. Just then Marlene came in, breathless. She had been in Market Square. She had seen the armored tanks go by her on the road. I tried to tell her about the cliff, people jumping off the cliff. I was just there, but I only recall pointing and the feeling that something had just passed close to my ear, so softly buzzing. We stood on the balcony. She and I looked to the fort and the bodies collapsed on the cliff. I thought I told her I was sorry about the glass that broke at my feet. More gunfire, then a flare went up in the sky. A white light, which was almost imperceptible, if not for the smoke trailing after it had its hard whoop around it made. It was a signal that someone was dragging Maurice and Jackie and Vincent to their deaths at that moment. What happens if you stand in a moment like this? Your own body must die too, I suppose, even if you do not. Aren't we all implicated in each other? In any moment like this, we must die too. I was that body draping the cliff. I felt myself on the cliff and I stood on the balcony with Marlene spilling a glass of water forever. The curfew began. We were allowed to get food in the daytime until 6 p.m. Then we had to stay inside. The streets were quiet. Not even a dog walked by. The radio warned us about violating the curfew. When we did get out, there were lines at the supermarket and more silence. Everyone looked as if they were alone, as if they did not know the person they lived with or the person who lived next door. We bought rum and sugar and rice and milk and split peas. We did everything in a stiff hurry, as if the day threatened to pass quicker than it usually did, as if the night was bearing down on us. At night, the waiting for daylight, again, was interminable. The baby next door was quiet, as if he knew it was important to be still. The thought that I should have died on the cliff covered me like a cloak. In my dreams, I lay on the cliff, cut up, my limbs in disarray, the rocks breaking through, pebbles in my mouth. In my dreams, I had stayed at the fort for 5 more minutes. I had convinced a woman from Kairaku to wait for me. We had been killed. When I woke from these dreams, I was not certain which was the dream, which was the real day. It was a small place. Everyone knew everyone else, so everyone knew someone who had been killed. People listened to the radio with a personal pain, with thoughts of retaliation, with stony hearts, or with a wound. The radio's attempts to sound distant and authoritative only rankled. The announcements themselves slipped into childish whinings of justifications for the killings. Once I saw a fight between 2 brothers, grown men, and the ability to kill each other. The fight was so physical, so fleshy, so reductive, as if abandoning any intellect, tearing their own skins off. These days reminded me of this. Finally, it was personal. The curfew lasted for 3 days, and then there were battleships out in the ocean. Someone outside can tell you how stupid war is, how insensible, or how heartless. It is always much more so for you. You know full well because you are hopeless. Your body cracks to each sound of gunfire. You genuflect to each bombing attack of 5.15s. By the time it's over, you are brittled. Your teeth feel like crushed stones. You're skeletal. You have a single wire of electricity running up your back over which you have no control. That is only the corporeal. You had come here for some purpose. Small, certainly, Foolish? Certainly. It's still hard to say what it was now without someone sneering as if it's childish and impossible. I wanted to be free. I wanted to feel as if history was not destiny. I wanted some relief from the enclosure of the door to no return. That's all. But no, it had hit me in the chest, and all the wind was gone out of me. It was all I could do to hold on to my mind, that is to know the orderly passing of minutes and the idea that the sun comes up and it's daylight, it goes down and night comes. But of course, nothing is the same. You climb into a car taking you to a US Army base on the island. You look at your hands and you look at your feet and you don't recognize them. And you wait for more to be done to you. You find yourself at another army base in another coming night, waiting for an airplane to lift you out. But there is no you. The fever I had on the first morning of the crisis seemed to last for years. As in a fever, you do not always know where you are. And then again, you know precisely and dreadfully where you are. A fever makes you acutely sensitive to light, to shadow, to the unsubstantial, to chimera. You feel everything. Things happening miles away, things yet to happen at distances. Your ears hurt with sound. Marlene and I are sitting now in a cafe on the Danforth. It is 15 years later. She had since gone back and had been arrested by the Americans. Then she had gone to Africa to work again. This is a woman from whom I learned all I know. There is a question I need to ask her. It is hard to ask her. Perhaps she'll be disappointed in my lack of faith. But I have finally figured out this question, and I'm finally not ashamed or embarrassed to ask her. I haven't seen her in a long time. She is ill. Her left shoulder is slightly immobile. We are drinking cappuccinos, and I ask her, Marlene, did we go crazy after? Did you go crazy after? Did you have trouble with life? Yes, she says.